welcome to our show today. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Malgosha Farafoszyn, a proactive math coach with a unique and compelling story. Malgosha has taken the challenges of her own educational journey and transformed them into a beacon of hope for students everywhere. She knows firsthand the barriers that come with the label, "I'm not a math person." She is more than a teacher. She is a holistic neurogrowth learning success coach who specializes in math and makes math enjoyable and accessible. Specializing in high school to first-year college calculus, Malgosha is dedicated to filling in the gaps in her students' understanding of math. Today, we'll explore her transformative coaching method that turned doubt into confidence. Join us as we learn from Malgosha how to change "I can't" into "I can" and "I will." Welcome, Malgosha.
Does traditional education deliver or fall short in educating and nurturing children? Introducing Aligned Learning Revolution, the show that confronts conventional norms and presents dynamic alternatives to transform education. Host Kahila Sivas tackles the foundational issues within classroom walls and advocates for holistic learning opportunities. It's time to reveal the strength of the innovative, holistic neurogrowth learning approach that goes beyond conventional teaching or tutoring methods, assuring every learner of a stress-free learning journey to unlock their fullest potential. Now, join Kahila Sivas.
Malgosha, it's such an excitement to have you on my podcast today. Welcome.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, Malgosha, I know you didn't like math, but currently you are a holistic neurogrowth learning success coach who specializes in math. But when you were growing up, that's a different story. So tell us about your relationship and math when you were growing up.
Okay, so when I was in, elementary and junior high, I liked math. It was all right. It made a lot of sense to me. And it was very, very linear, logical. And then the hate came when I went into high school. When I went into high school, all of a sudden, it was like a different world. It wasn't the math that I had learned. It was something completely different. It went super fast. And I was basically like, treading water, just trying to survive. There was no mastering anything. It was just surviving. And during that time, my relationship with math became not so great. And I actually had to take courses twice. So I took math 10 in grade 10. I took the math course twice in grade 11, grade 12, so that I could have higher marks. But I still wasn't really understanding, and it was going way too fast.
So the speed.
Yes.
The speed was the problem.
Oh, the speed and the intensity.
Mm-hmm. So, this podcast is for parents. So yes. I want you to explain how a parent who has a child right now in their family, they're experiencing something like you. They probably done well, but they hit some grade and then it just seems like math is no longer their favorite subject. And you wonder what happened to you, right? So help us understand a little bit about what's happening in the child's mind so parents can understand it.
So the first thing to understand is that, the education system, however it is, for some reason, there is a huge jump. So it's just this gap that's already there. And from grade 9, I'm talking about the Canadian because I'm in Canada. So the Canadian education system, where from what you learn in grade 9 to what you start to learn in grade 10, there's a very big jump. And not only is there a big jump, but all of a sudden you get so much more content in it. So when you get something like that, as a student, when that started happening and it was coming at me, I was just like, what is going on? Why are there so many things? Why don't I understand anything? And at that point, there was no trying to understand. There was just trying to survive. So when that was happening, then you start as a student, you start to not like it because you're not understanding and you're constantly behind, constantly not, and you're spending, 4 or 5 months in the classroom not understanding what's going on. So it turns into dread. You're going to math class and you're just like, oh my God, not again. Now I'm going to sit here for an hour and 10 minutes and not understand anything the teacher says. And then sometimes if I go to ask the teacher, they're going to ask me, how come, we did this yesterday? How come I don't remember? So I'm going to feel shame. So then I'm not going to go ask. I don't really want to tell my parents at this point because I probably should have told them way in at the beginning. And they're also going to be asking me, well, how come you didn't find help? And so there's no chance to like catch up. It's just you're hit with something and then you're trying to survive as a student. I know most students, even the students I have, they're trying to survive. But by the time they figure out like this isn't going well, this isn't working for them, they're already behind. And then that's the question that comes up. And so that shame keeps students from coming forward and then they just keep struggling.
Yeah. And parents find at this point is when, as a parent, we think, okay, let me find help for them. And then we, as parents, we can hire tutors. And that's where the differentiation for you came in because you were a tutor. And when parents did bring some students like this, you know exactly what they needed because you've been through this, you've struggled through this. So tell me, what was it that you couldn't give them as a tutor because you were a tutor once before you became a holistic neurogrowth learning success coach?
Yes. So as a tutor, we come in and we help students with what they're doing currently in class. And so if they don't understand that, a lot of the time it's that they're missing something or they didn't get something from before. But as a tutor, when I was with students, I could see like, oh, okay, you need to be reminded how to do fractions. You forgot the fraction operations or you forgot, integers. But because they're already on the next step, they're like, no. I've had, students tell me like, no, you're just here to show me how to do what I'm doing now. I don't want you to teach me or to show me the stuff from before. And that's why tutoring wasn't working for me as a tutor to help students because I wasn't helping them. I was just doing their homework for them, guiding them through their homework. Okay, now what do you do? Okay, and if you have this and this. And so it wasn't effective. But I knew if I were to explain something to you that you missed or just remind you of something, right? Because they also have 2 months off. So by the time they come back, they're not doing math during the summertime or their breaks. If I could just explain certain things, then they can get up to where they are. So tutoring was not an effective way for me to help students.
Mm-hmm. And you were a teacher in the classroom. Many times you were in private schools teaching. But even there, you didn't find the fulfillment. You couldn't help the students the way you wanted, right? There was something missing. Tell parents about that because a lot of teachers try their best, but sometimes it doesn't work in the classroom again. And you found the same thing in your classroom.
Absolutely. I mean, being in a classroom, as a teacher, I can't say that it's not an easy job. It's very hard because if you think about it, students come in, but they're not at the same level with everything. Some of them are gifted, some of them are just, the average, and some of them have gaps from some other years or from some other things happening. And so you're in a classroom as a teacher, you have your curriculum, you have to teach a certain thing in a certain time and a certain amount. And then you have all different levels in the classroom. So we're basically in the classroom teaching the curriculum is what we're doing. We're not necessarily teaching the students, we're teaching the curriculum that we're supposed to pump out. And so I tried, my hardest to, when I explain it, to try to explain it in the way that they understand. But of course, if a student has a gap, they're not going to understand. So I would offer tutoring after. It wasn't paid. It was just, during the lunch hour, I would say, hey, come in, or after school. But I mean, not a ton of students were showing up because who wants to do school and then on the break from school, do more school, So it was tough to get them in, but I knew if I did, they would do they would achieve that success. But again, that's outside of the classroom. That's not within the classroom.
Yeah, it's hard, as you said, curriculum. Tell us a little bit about that because it's kind of hard for parents to understand when we're delivering curriculum. Why can't you address all the students? Like, why not address the students at the same time? Tell me why it's not possible.
It's not possible. It's like if you think of, you have deadlines at work, any kind of work. You have deadlines that you have to hit in a certain amount of time. So each week you have a deadline and you have to get this accomplished. The next week you have to get this accomplished. And it's already a big task to even just get the first topic, to get the first unit taught. And you have to do it in a certain amount of time. So you don't have time to kind of veer off and take a trip into, the students that have some gaps in fractions, for instance. By the time we get to grade 10th, you need to know how to do fractions. We're not reviewing fractions. You need to know how to do integers. So we're just continuing to go. And then once we hit that mark and we're like, okay, we've hit this, now we switch to the next one. So there's no time. And even there are times where teachers do take their time. But again, because of the varying levels within the classroom, sometimes also what happens is if you're teaching to the students who need the review, the students that don't need the review, they're bored. And what do you do with them? So you have 25 of these students, and for each and every one of them, they're individual learners. And we have to figure out how to keep them busy, engaged, and learning. So sometimes we even fall behind because we're trying to do that. And then other things come in, such as the students saying, some of them saying they're bored, or their parents coming to us and saying, hey, you're teaching this, but my student is, my child is bored. So, and then instead of, they always say if a student is gifted or if a student is doing really well, give them more stuff to do. But is that really an effective way to use that student's time? Just give them more stuff because they're done faster? That also doesn't really jive very well with
It's almost like a punishment. You finished fast, let me give you more work.
Exactly. You're finished? Okay, I have a booklet I can give you now. And they're like, but I'm finished. So what's my, kind of like reward? So even the time management of trying to figure out what to do. And if you're in high school and you have a specific subject you're teaching, you can't say, oh, work on the English that you have or something like that. You have to stay within the math. Or you can say, work on your other homework, but then it becomes, in math, I do my math stuff, and then it's my homework block. Mm-hmm. And then again, it's not addressing their needs. Maybe they want more, something more complex, something that they actually will have to wrestle with and problem solve.
Yeah, we are giving them busy work versus they need more engagement and challenging work so they can get to the next level. They see it as purposeful work, right? Instead of busy work. So, when you give more pages, they're just like, maybe next time I shouldn't finish fast. They're just going to put me to work more.
And that's what happens in a classroom, then those students who are doing really well, they get discouraged. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, I finished really fast and now I get to do more work. But what I would really like to do is, eventually I want to be an engineer. So I want to know, how does the math, pertain to that? And we can't address that because, again, we're one teacher versus 25 students. We'd have to come up with 25 different lessons. I mean, teachers do the best that they can. And this is the system we currently have in the classroom for a long time, and it's still this way. And we do talk about differentiation, and differentiation was like a buzzword and probably still is in education, where you teach to the different levels. But even when you're teaching to the different levels, you still maybe can do a maximum of 3. But again, you're giving someone busy work. While I'm attending to the students who are really getting it and wanting that extra knowledge, I'm giving busy work to the other ones. While I'm working with the students that are struggling a lot, I give the other ones busy work because I can't split myself into 3 to be with, So it's tough. It's tough.
So when before we go there, give us some tips to parents if their child is struggling with math, because that's what you focus on. Is it math that they're struggling with, or is there more to it? Because you are a learning success coach, right? So you look at various things when someone struggles. So what should parents pay attention to? Some stuff that they can pay attention to.
You mean like when their student starts to struggle, what should
Yeah, how can they help, or some tips to them?
So one tip is to be in the beginning when they start the school year is to be more active in asking them how they're doing, in checking their marks, but also assuring the student that you're not doing it because you want to get them into trouble and you want them to feel, like they better do their homework or else. But more so that you're just checking in to see how they are doing in case they need that support. I think a lot of the times, as I was saying, there's a shame that comes on a student, right? And it can come from it usually comes from themselves, to be honest with you. I felt shame. I just felt the shame, I didn't have to talk to my parents or teacher. And then when we go to talk to our parents, there's an added shame because we don't want to disappoint them. As a student, as a child, you don't want to disappoint. So as a parent, when they are checking in to see what the student is doing, using a different approach instead of like, did you do your homework? How come you didn't do your homework? Why aren't you doing your homework? Because that is already kind of like combative, and it's already puts the student at the defense. More so to come at the student and say, okay, well, how are you doing? Like, honestly, how is it going? Do you understand? Are you having trouble? If you're having trouble, don't worry. It's okay that you're having trouble. We will figure out and come up with a plan of what to do. And that way the student will feel more comfortable when they are struggling to come to the parent faster, rather than how students come, to me now, where it's been like a month and then the parent's like, oh my God, they have a test on Monday and they're doing bad and they failed everything. And there's a panic. So being proactive is a very good proactive, but in a positive, reassuring way that it's not a scolding.
I love that.
Right? Yeah.
Positive, proactive parenting.
Yes, positive, proactive parenting.
Parenting. That's triple P right there. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. That's amazing. Yeah, proactive. And also you're front loading the child that I'm not going to be mad, but I'm here to support. Right.
Yeah, that's key, I have to say. That is the approach, that when I'm coaching my students, that's the approach I have. They never have to feel ashamed that they don't know how to do something, or they forgot how to do something, or they're having an off day. They never have to feel ashamed. We are just going to start where they are, but also there's no tension in the air. It's just a comfort. It's like, if you don't know, just tell me and we'll fix that really fast, rather than let's hide, the student hiding it and then it becoming like this big bomb that's ready to explode in a bad way.
So how can parents get help for their kids at school and with their teacher? What's the best way to be proactive with the teacher?
So the best way to be proactive with the teacher probably would be to email the teacher in the beginning, and just ask the teacher like, hi, my student is coming in. I would appreciate it if you can let me know how they're doing, maybe after the first quiz or the second quiz, how things are going. And if there's anything you notice, just to let me know. So that when the student does get a quiz, not only when the student gets a quiz, but also to know when the quiz is. So for example, I have a parent that called me yesterday in a panic. She said, my son, he's not doing well. He's writing a second unit test. He failed this, he failed that. I didn't have access to his account. Now she's getting access to the account. Now she's emailing the teacher. And something that parents sometimes forget when students go into high school, especially, is that they're still kids. They're still students. They didn't all of a sudden graduate from being the teacher holding their hand throughout elementary and junior high, and high school, they can just let go. It's still kind of the same. So if they check in with the teacher and just say, let me know how things are going. Can you let me know when the first quiz is, which week it is if they don't know what the day is. And then, can I check in with you afterwards how it's going? The teacher will be happy. If I was a teacher and I got an email like that and a parent was just like, hey, can you give me some feedback afterwards? Then right away there's something happening before anything.
Yes.
And then I write myself a note, and then I would get back to the parent and saying, okay, well, this is, and it's also an extra eye that the teacher can look out for that student. So the parent can really, be proactive. Again, the word is proactive for today, I think.
Yes, yes. As parents, we have to be proactive. And that also helps the child see that you care. You're not just going to get into action when they're failing, because just moving into action when they're failing means that you only care when you fail. But also when you're doing well too. I like to know how you're doing, right? Because we like to show off as kids. Don't we like to show off to our parents? Look how I'm doing really well.
Yes.
So you establish that relationship, right, as proactive as you can in the beginning. And the teacher also knows that you care. And every teacher loves to see that the parents care and they're involved, right? And it doesn't have to be after every day after school that she needs to give us a report. That doesn't make any sense. But after a certain point, and also another thing that I want to add is also teaching your child to be proactive with their teacher on getting information early, right? Go and ask, like after school, teachers are always welcoming their students into their classrooms, right? Come and talk to me, right? So they can start learning that from a, even younger age. Parents can install that habit. Go ask your teacher, when's your next test? You don't have to wait until they announce it. You can actually find out. That's a good skill set to, install as a habit for our kids.
Absolutely.
And also teachers like that, because now they know you care. Because another thing that the child is doing is showing the teacher that they care about school and their education, which is a really good thing to start, because in a university, if you go talk to your professors, you get so much more help than if you just attend their lectures. They go to college, right? It's so important. Such an amazing habit. I always tell my kids, always go introduce yourself to your professor or coach or whoever you're working with. Like, make a personal introduction to your teacher.
A personal connection. Like, you make it a point to say hi.
Yeah. So let's go back. So how did you change from being someone who hated math and choosing to become a math teacher?
I know, right?
How did that switch up?
Well, so I left high school saying I'm never going to do any career with math, which is a very familiar thing I hear from lots of my students. They're like, I just need to pass, and then I'm never going to touch math again. So I was that stereotypical student saying that exact same thing. And I've tried going into different careers, human resources, administration. I was a receptionist. But every time I went into these careers, I was like, I don't really like this. No, this isn't really for me. So I experimented, which I think is fine, to experiment. And then at the end of the day, I remember my grade 3 self who said, I want to be a teacher. From my grade 3 teacher who would make spelling mistakes on the board. And I was like, yes, you can make mistakes as a teacher. I don't have to be perfect. This is awesome. I could totally be a teacher. So I went back and I was like, okay, I'm going to go and be a teacher. That's what I wanted to do since I was in grade 3. And then, because I am very ambitious, and I was like, I need to get a degree, excuse me, that will ensure that I get hired. I decided to go through the 4 core subjects, English, science, social, and math, and decide which one I'm going to go into, because I want to be hired. I didn't want to I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing any other degree. I'm just very competitive and ambitious. I'm like, I need a guarantee. So I kind of did like process of elimination. science, I like science, but chemistry was not it for me. So goodbye, science. Social, I'm sorry to say that for me, it was like so boring. And I was like, I can't do it. So then I had two, math and English. I did go into English, but then they introduced Old English and I had to write a paper. And I was like, oh my God, I've lived in Canada most of my life and I can't even understand what they're saying. And I was like, English is gone. So math was the only one that was left. And I was like, okay. I took a breath in out. I'm like, okay, you know what? If other people can do it, so can I. So I'm just going to.
I just want to stop you. Say that again. Say that again, because I love that. If other people can do it.
Yes. If other people can do it and other people have done it, why can't I do it? So I was like, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do math. So I went from absolutely not wanting to do math in my career, not using it at all, to jumping headfirst into a math degree. And was it scary? Yeah, absolutely. Was it a challenge? Holy moly. It was, one of the biggest challenges of my life. But I set my mind to it. And that's very important. I set my mind to it that I'm going to do it. Other people have done it, and I will figure out a way to do it, no matter what. And that's
You had no other choice because the other three doors closed.
I know. I was like, oh no.
One more left. That's it. Then you have to say goodbye to teaching.
Absolutely.
You could have chosen art teacher or woodworking teacher, or those were available if math didn't work out.
I could have done a lot of people do like sociology or psychology. They do something, not a core subject. They just do a degree.
Yes.
But I wanted it to be specific towards what I was doing.
Yes.
Didn't know math would be the specific thing I would be doing later on. But,
that's what you call grit, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And that's, we talk about this thing called mindset. That's the thing that's like thrown out there a lot nowadays. But it's also the grit. Like you can set your mind to something, but you also have to do the work. You also have to push through all the barriers. You also have to push through all your doubts. Because I had many doubts. When I started the first math course, I was, sweating. I was so afraid because I was like, what am I doing? I'm taking the subject that I didn't like, that I struggled with and thought, I don't know where this came from. And now that's what I'm going to spend 4 years doing in university.
And then go out and teach others.
Well, I didn't know at that time I was going to do that.
Well, you wanted to become a teacher. So there was that at the end of the road was
an elementary teacher. But through doing the math degree, I actually fell in love with math.
Nice.
And then I was like, oh my God, I've just proven to myself that you don't have to be a math person as they, that's the thing that they say you're a math person or not. But you don't have to have that already within you. You can learn it. And so that's what I fell in love with. I fell in love with the whole process of going from something I didn't know how to do at all to eventually succeeding in it. And then I wanted to help other students have that same success and see that it's not impossible. They can do it. And that's how it came, me being a math coach. A math teacher before math.
And then I want to touch on the fact of the grit. That everybody says mindset, and this is a problem because mindset is a result.
Yeah.
You get that as a result of so many different things, which is commitment, consistency, perseverance, grit, and then changing and shifting your stories, because you started shifting your stories from being, I'm not a math person, I can't do this, I will never get this, right? These are things our students say, to I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a shot here. I'm going to really try this. And then you saw that you were capable. There was nothing genetic about it or structure in your brain that wasn't capable of any of that with math. It was all there. The wiring was there, but our stories block them. We tell ourselves, you're not a math person, don't even try.
Yeah.
So this is what our students go through, right? Our children go through this exact same thing, not just with math, other things, right? We can tell ourselves something that it's not for me without knowing our capacity to do it. We kind of block ourselves. So amazing. So you came out, you're like, I'm going to be a math teacher. I'm going to help students. Same as me, after I discovered math, I was like, I'm going to go share whatever I hacked in math and we have these codes. I'm going to give it to them so easily. I'm never going to let another person say I hate math. That was my thing too. And then you enter the school, and we talked about it already, is that the differentiation becomes just a word that we hope and pray, because if you have 26 to 30 kids, differentiation is not possible. Even if you differentiate, you're still leaving out someone out of that differentiate because you're differentiating. You're bucketing people in the class, and then now the other bucket is sitting there, as we talked about, giving extra work and making them bored, and they're like, I hate math, so boring, because we haven't given them at their level what they need to be doing or challenging them. So then you went into tutoring, and we want to differentiate tutoring and what you do as a holistic neurogrowth learning success coach who specializes in math. There's a big difference, because it is a new thing for parents. So let's explain that. How are you different? What do you do every day now that is so different than what you did as a tutor?
Well, first thing that's completely different is the holistic word that we say. I'm not just addressing the math portion, I'm addressing the student and the person, and the student as a person. So I'm addressing them as a whole. It's no longer just, okay, what did you do in math? Okay, let's do this math and let's go. So many other things come into being successful and being able to do any subject or do actually anything. So again, your mindset, your grit,
Your stories.
also your stories, also the mood you're in on the day that you come. Maybe that day you're not in the mood to do anything, so nothing's going to happen, right? So, and the other one is the neural growth, and that's everything about the mind and the rewiring and how it's wired. I see a lot of these on social media and everything, and it's like, yeah, you just do it, you just go. I'm the workout people who are like, have a nice figure, and they're like, yeah, I just go and do it, but they don't feel like doing it every day. But nobody tells you that part, right? They don't tell you that you're not going to feel like doing it every day. So what do you do when you don't feel like doing it? Or what do you do when you're stressed out about other stuff or about other subjects in school? Or what do you do when, I don't know, something happened? So all those things, they're happening in our brain at the same time that we're doing math. So the neural growth is, finding different pathways of doing things, creating different stories. Maybe we have a story that's going, and let's cut that story and let's make another story. So that's another thing. So we're teaching to the whole student. We're encompassing them as, a person, as a student, as a math student, as a daughter or a son in our sessions. And then we're also helping to rewire and helping them, if they're anxious during a test, I will help you work through that anxiety so that next time you go to a test, you don't have that anxiety anymore. So I would say that that's the biggest difference. So we really get to know the student really well. We get to know their moods, and when we get to know them in that way and we get to know their personalities, the way that we are helping them and teaching them and coaching them is totally different than, okay, let's sit down. What's 3 + 3? Okay, yeah, we have 3 and 3. Totally different.
And tutors are constantly focused on the content.
Yes, it's just content.
Yeah, whereas the student is just ignored. Who cares how you're feeling, right? Because we don't have time for any of that. We are here because it's like going to the emergency room, right? I'd always compare in my head. Yeah. When you go to the emergency, they're not like, okay, they need to get to the problem right away, whatever you're coming to, right? They don't do a full checkup on you right away unless it's needed, required later on. But they have to immediately close whatever's bleeding or whatever's happening, right? So that's kind of how tutors work. At the surface, they're fixing it. And then, but did they get to the root cause of stuff?
No.
You and I being a tutor, we never get to that. And
No.
yes, explain that.
So we never get to that. But sometimes when, when I was tutoring, like I knew, I was like, oh, okay, I've been with you for like a month or 2 months. Okay, every time we do integers, positive, negative numbers, every time we get to those questions, anything with that, you can't do it. So then I was like, oh my God, okay, so that's the struggle. If we fix that, then probably they will be okay. So I had these things in mind, but I literally had a student one time tell me, and this was when, the student said this to me, and that was the moment I realized I can't be a tutor anymore. It's not effective. I was sitting with him, we were doing something, and again, I was like, oh my God, if I just teach him positive, negative numbers, how to do that, then they'll be fine. Then I can teach them what they're actually doing in their classroom. So I said, okay, let me just take like 5 minutes. Let me just show you this. And the student stopped me and said, no, you're not here to do that. That's what my teacher does or can do. You're just here to help me with my homework. And I was like, I stopped dead in my tracks and I was like, oh, so every question we do, this is going to be a struggle and I can't fix it. Yeah. And also I have a time restraint. I'm here for 1 hour. You come once a week for 1 hour and we got to get that homework done and that's it.
Yeah.
So
surface fixing, not to the gap they have, and they don't even want to address it because they're there, give me all the shortcuts and get me to finish this, get me ready for the next test. And then after the test, it's not going to stay for them because they never truly learned it. It was just in the short term. We can put some input into them and they remember for that period of time. And then when final exam comes, most students struggle because they haven't comprehended the whole concept, right? And they just memorized it's gone because if we don't properly file it into long term, you'll never be able to access it. Later on, it's gone. So that's another big problem with tutoring is that we don't have that time. Even if we wanted to the kids are not ready for that because they are in a rush. They're in rush. Like, I need to finish this. I need to get ready for my quiz. Don't talk to me anything about anything else. Got to get going. And then parents also bring in with that urgency, right? When parents come, they're also looking at it. That's why we talked about the positive, proactive parenting at the beginning. When you have that in place, you can keep checking on your child. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to get to a point where you find out on a report card, my child just got 55 in math and we only have like 1 month to get this up. And they got to pass this final exam. And this mark is so much meaningful because at the end of the day, I always compare marks to getting paid. Mm-hmm. For a student, that's their paycheck.
Yes. Yeah.
That is their paycheck. So it's like getting, I thought I was going to get $1,000 for my paycheck. And then I ended up getting 200. And you're like, what? Where did my 800 go?
Yes.
Right? So we don't want to shock the student, shock the parent. Being proactive. That's our word today. That's kind of been the theme, being proactive. Yes.
Proactive. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you explained about neurogrowth, holistic. Now, how does your students respond to this? Like what the relationship wise? Now, how are they able to, like you said, that other students said you're just a homework helper, just do that. But what about in this relationship? Do they not tell you that?
No, because the whole coaching approach, because we don't call ourselves tutors, the whole coaching approach is that we are coaching them to understand what they're doing. So I actually don't do homework with them. They do their homework by themselves.
That's true independence.
The magic of coaching, And when I tell parents that, they're like, what do you mean? They do what? They do their own homework? So how do you help them? And then all it is I help them understand and then they can do it, which means that then they can do their quiz, then they can do their test and they don't need me sitting there with them, walking them through it.
Yeah. But before even you give them that content for them to understand in simplified version, because math is sort of complicated in many ways. You also make it simplified. I know that, right? So that's another part of you being you being that learner who hated math and you self-taught yourself during those years when you know you need to do this and you stick with it and then you learned it, that gives you that added advantage. But on top of it, you're also helping the students to prepare their soil. I always think of our mind as a land of soil. We have a mind soil. Now, if we can't plant something on a land that's not prepared,
Yes.
if we've planted, we're going to run into problems. There might be rocks. There might be, there's no water supply. All of these things has to be addressed and, get the land prepared. And then you can plant and then you can harvest because that land is prepared. Same with our mind.
Yeah.
Right? If it's not prepared and we try to plant something, which is the content, the land is not going to give any harvest. It's even going to reject that planting very quickly. So that's what happens to our students, right? They're not ready. We're so content driven in the school system. And when something doesn't make sense and we try to just give content, the kid starts rejecting it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the neural growth, that's the thing that helps with that. That's the thing that helps with their mind soil, is getting them ready and getting them prepared to, take something in and what to do with that, something that's completely new. I tell my students, of course you don't know how to do it. How many times have you seen this? So your teacher just showed you one time. And you're feeling bad because you don't know how to do it and ashamed and you've cut the learning there. I'm like, of course you don't know how to do it. And that's okay. Let's start preparing that soil. Let's start figuring out how to take something that you don't understand or they told you one time and you think you should know. Let's change that, rewire that thinking to, okay, so I have this new thing that my teacher is telling me. I don't get it yet, but I will. So what are some steps I can take to try to understand it? And that's when many things come in. Could be asking the teacher again. It could be watching a video. It could be asking your parents or getting support. Even though we help students, there's also like a little fence or gate or something that happens between the student and us. There is that, where they are not barrier. If they are not willing to get the help, it's not going to work. So we also need to help them get that mind soil ready and get them ready. It's okay. If you need help, awesome. There's going to be many things in life that you're going to be doing and seeing for the first time that you will need help with. So let's start doing it now when you're in school. And then that carries over to teach them that later on, no matter what challenges come up, it's okay that they don't get them in the beginning. They can eventually. And that's changing, rewiring their brain to be like, oh, that makes sense. Okay, yes. And then they are open.
And it's so... The skill that you just talked about, I just wanted to mention to parents and kids or students listening to this, it's so transferable because next time you really get stuck in real life, you're not going to be like, oh, I can't do this, I'm not capable. You're going to say, this is something new. Why should I know this? If, for example, I've never fixed a tire myself. I have a flat tire. I don't have to go, why don't I know how to fix this? Why am I not doing this? Right? I will figure out solutions. Okay, what can I do next? Who can I call? Is there a number I can call? You can calm down. And that's the beauty of math, is problem solving.
Yes.
The capacity.
Problem solving.
Yes, critical thinking, problem solving. A lot of people ask me, probably you heard it too. Many parents ask, why do we learn calculus? I'm not going to be an engineer. My son or daughter is not going to engineering. Why are they pushing this calculus? I always tell them how much our mind grow when we're exposed to math problems, and we can twist and turn our minds and also work on this story that you were just sharing with me. I can't do it, so I'm going to give it a try. What information do I need? What formula do I need? How am I going to? And then sitting with that problem for a while in an unknown space. Isn't that what life is? Sitting in uncertainty. Without knowing where to go for the solution, that's life.
Yes.
So this is a life skill. Learning math is a life skill that you can transcend into everything you do rest of your life. So it actually makes you calmer. You become like, well, I know there's a solution, but I just don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to get to it?
Yes. And that's the beauty of math, is the part of problem solving. You don't have to get the answer right away. And if you don't get the answer, that's it. You're failing math, because in life, there's many problems we're going to have. And do we always know exactly what to do at every time? No. So math is that transferable subject, that I didn't know when I was, in school. I was like, oh my God, calculus, I don't know. But it's true. You don't know how to do something, so you attack it one way. You don't get it that way, no giving up. Let's try a different way, or let's take a break and then come back to it and let our mind kind of like, I don't know what the word is, just sit with it.
Yeah.
Not
marinate it. I like to call it, let it marinate it.
Yes. I tell my students that after I give them tons of stuff and then they're like, I see their eyeballs getting humongous. I'm like, okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to go away and you're not going to do any math at this point. You need it to marinate. You need in your
Just
brain like to start, it to start like going. Yep. Because how many of us, parents and we're thinking of how to do something. And the more we think about how to do something and solve the problem, the more we come up with no solutions. And then we go do something else. And then all of a sudden, when we're on a walk or we're cooking or we're reading a book, all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, I know what to do. And it's like a light bulb goes off, and that's life. That's how we solve problems in life sometimes, right? So that's how math is. So I also tell my students, don't stress yourself out that you don't know how to do it immediately.
Yes.
Let it sit with you. Let it just, and then it will come to you.
And sitting with that is a life lesson, because sometimes you don't want to solve things just like that. It's okay to take a moment. It's okay to leave that problem hanging. Go for a walk, go sit by yourself, watch TV, do something that's not going to be triggering that problem. I need to solve this. I need to solve this, fixating on it. Just let it go and come back, and you'll be like, whoa, I never even thought of that. Because your brain is able to connect them like puzzle pieces. And that's why you love puzzle pieces, which you have on the background there, because it all comes together and creates the bigger picture for us, but we can't force it. And that's what you provide, an environment where your students can explore math with you by their side. So they get this confident, right? They get confident that I can solve anything. All I have to do is become a little bit of a researcher, give some time for my brain, say the right things, and my brain will work together with me. And we teach that, right? As neuro growth learning success coach, that's one of the things you teach is you can control your brain. It doesn't control you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You can command action from it. It's in your hands, not the other way around.
Absolutely. I mean, isn't that what, nowadays is the thing that everybody's, after the COVID and everybody's sitting with themselves and they had all these stories and then they're like, oh my God, I need to change how I think about things and rewire my brain. So why not grab the student when they're a student, and why not help them rewire it at a young age? So when they're older, they already have that rewiring. They already have all those tools in their toolbox and they're able to do that and then function really well.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So I think it's great.
I know this show kind of a lot of people, a lot of different audiences watch this show. So one of the people that watches also teachers. So as a teacher, what can you advise them in the classroom? Because it is hard, but this show is not about pointing fingers that it's hard, we can't do it. But in that moment, what can they do to be as much helpful to the students who are struggling? Like you and I were in the classrooms, who were daydreaming and drawing stuff to pretend we were so busy so no one picks on us.
Yeah. So, there's something that I heard recently about teachers, or about when students are asked about their teachers. What do you like about your math teacher? A lot of the times with the student remembers how the teacher made them feel, not what the teacher actually taught them. So when they are asked, like, why do you like your math teacher? They're like, because she's really nice. She comes and helps me. But if you ask them, what does she help you with? They'll be like, numbers, math, I don't know. So as a teacher, if we shift our focus from, sometimes we can get into like, okay, no, you just have to know this. Okay, no, we just got to keep going. Okay, stop asking the question. Let's just keep. If we focus more on the students as just people, and just addressing their needs. And if you can't address them right away in the classroom, because that will take you on a different tangent, then you let them know, okay, I've heard you. I won't do it right now, but I'm going to write a note here. And after I'm done teaching up here, I'm going to come to you and then we can talk about it.
Yes.
So addressing them in that way will make a big difference, even if they don't understand the math. Because then if they are struggling with math, they'll feel that their teacher sees them and they'll be more likely to come and ask for help. When we're teachers and we're really busy and maybe we don't know who needs help, and we're like, oh my God, I can't help all these students. Or yeah, Johnny's okay. And then on the test, we're like, oh my God, Johnny was not okay, but he never said anything. Why didn't he ask? So focusing on having a nice relationship and addressing those things, not us getting caught up in the time limit, and sometimes we can be dismissed. I've been dismissive, like, okay, no, we can't do this right now. Okay, let's keep going, and I was like, oh, I don't like that.
So catching ourselves at that moment and saying it's not the content that's going to be really wired into their brain. It's how you made them feel at that time of the, when they needed that help, how you made them feel. Next day, they might want to learn the content because they're feeling better, because feeling affects what our brain does to us, right? It can cloud us, it can shut us down. And then if the teacher's constantly giving that child, the student, the space to be themselves and address their feelings, the next day they might start performing and don't have those negative thoughts that stops them.
Exactly. And as you just said, the next day they might come in and be like, okay, let me just pay attention a little bit more and see if this will, if I can get it. And even if they don't get it, at least you have their attention rather than that constant not addressing that part. And then they come the next day to class and they disrupt the class.
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh my God, why are you disrupting the class? We don't have time for this. Stop being. And I know as a teacher, it's hard. And I know as a teacher, we have limited time and we have to catch ourselves. I had to catch myself many times and hold my tongue and just be like, okay, I have to take that 30 seconds. It's just, 30 seconds where you can just write a note here, have a notebook in front of you. This person asked this, that person asked, and then just write, okay, you couldn't address that in the classroom with everybody, but you can go after to the student. Okay, tell me what you're having trouble with. Okay, let's walk through this. And that student, their confidence and their self-esteem and, will be like, oh, she sees me. She's going to come and she helps me. So maybe I'm going to try a little bit harder in the class for her.
Yep.
But if I'm struggling, if I'm struggling, maybe I will ask.
Absolutely. Relationship is everything. First relationship. So what's your advice to parents who have struggling math students or children in their family?
So if you have a student, a child who's struggling with math, number one thing is, and I don't want to say that parents shame them, but parents get it sometimes into a panic. Like, well, haven't you been doing your homework? Why didn't you tell me this earlier? Because, it's normal to panic because we think it's too late. So just taking a deep breath. And when a student, your child is struggling, just going up to them and saying, you can even say, I'm not going to get mad at you. I don't want to make you feel bad, but I've noticed, your marks aren't the best in math. So can you tell me, what's going on? Are you understanding what's going on? and reassuring them that, if you are having trouble, then let's figure out how to get you help so that you're not, because it must feel really awful, struggling, not knowing what to do, and it must be stressful, anxiety, so tapping into how they feel and making them feel reassured that you're not going to get mad at them, and that you just want to see, if you are having trouble, then let's find a way so that you don't have trouble, so you have a better time. And you can even say, me, I used to have this problem, and then I needed help, and it's okay to need help, so how can I help? And if I can't help, how can we figure out where we can get the help?
Yes, absolutely. Being positive, proactive
Yes.
parents.
Yes.
Yes. And then we're teaching our children to be proactive at the same time. Because what does our children do? They watch us and then
Yes.
they learn from us. They're like sponges absorbing everything you do. So this is the best way to show them how to become best parents themselves later in life. There's so many skills like learning, right? That's why I love more than education, the word education. I love learning because learning is happening all the time.
Yeah.
We're learning right now. You and I are learning right now. Whoever's going to watch this is learning right now. Learning happened. Education is different, but learning is every day, any situation. So when a parent is positive and proactive in their parenting, they're instilling all these, very important skill sets into their children as well. And next time they struggle, they know how to be proactive themselves. It's amazing. Anything else you want to add, Malgosha?
Parents, teachers, who should I add for?
Anyone you want to address to, or students that you work with? Doesn't matter.
So I will do the reassuring part now. So if somebody is struggling, your student is your child is struggling, there are solutions. Sometimes when they start to struggle and any other things, we go into panic mode. Oh my God, what are we going to do? The time is running out and all this stuff. So just to kind of say, it's okay. There is a solution for everything. There's no such problem that there's no solution to it and you can never solve it. There is a solution. And just to be proactive in finding the best solution for the student that will fit the student. Maybe tutorials at school do not fit the student because the teacher that's there, they don't understand the teacher. So it doesn't matter that the teacher has extra time. Maybe videos, the student doesn't look up the videos on their own because, to be honest, which student is sitting there on their weekends looking up math videos to help them do, even though they have it at their fingertips, So just to figure out what's going to work. And if they need that external help, then get the external help without saying, having a negative connotation on it, or like, well, now we need to get help for you, or we're going to do it my way, figuring out the student's way that's going to work. And, having a meeting with one of us just to see what's even going on.
And that's the beauty of what you do is you also give clarity to the parents you work with as a holistic neurogrowth learning success coach, because it is a family thing. Because when a child starts failing or doing something not what they're expected in school, it affects the whole family as well. And then if you have younger kids or older kids, they pitch in and they're watching. Now you have a whole family situation, which becomes even more problems come up, right? So it's hard. It's hard, but being proactive, we haven't said it enough. It's the proactive, positive, proactive parenting is the word here today, words here today. So thank you, Malgosha. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. I love what you do for your students. A person who went from, I don't like math, I'm never going to touch math. By process of elimination, she got stuck into a math class and she had the grit and the perseverance to, what, I'm going to stick to this and I'm going to figure this out. If someone else can do it, I can do it too.
Yes.
Yes, I have everything. So thank you so much for what you do for your students. I know they love you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
So there you have it. That is Malgosha. She is such an amazing holistic neurogrowth learning success coach. Her dedication to getting her students to love math comes from her struggling in math. So that's why I always say the best teachers are the ones who struggled with the concept or the subject that they choose to teach. And Malgosha is one of those beautiful people. She has created so many transformations in the lives of students. It's just amazing. But I do want to touch on a few things she said for parents and teachers for teachers to focus on building that relationship versus the content. Content we can give. Students always remember how we made them feel. And are they feeling like heard by the teachers? They do way better than students we just push content to, because content doesn't connect, right? So we need to connect before we can correct everyone, because that's what Les Brown says, is that before you correct someone, you need to connect with them. So that's really important. Again, the biggest words that were shared today again and again and again in her presentation was positive, proactive parenting. I love when we find these words that have the same letters that start with I love it. I have all these C words that I work with. And it's so important to be proactive parents. And sometimes it's hard for us, as she was saying. We we want the best for our kids, so we try to jump in there and solve it. And sometimes we don't know how to deal with it. If it's our first time seeing our child struggle, we don't have the experience to deal with it proactively, or positively. So that's why it's important to be proactive, right? So take those steps, ask about their school from the starting of the classroom. When it starts, start asking them those questions, be there with them. So you're not just policing them when they do bad, but you're actually with them, walking along with them and guiding them even when they're doing well. And when they do fall behind, you're there to guide them into the proper help. And I also hope that you understand the difference as a parent. You understand the difference between tutoring and neurogrowth, holistic neurogrowth learning success coaching, which is what Malgosha does, and specializing in math. It's so important to look at the child as a whole person. We usually think of our students as students, but they're real people. They have feelings. They have mind stories that they're dealing with. And we always say, have a positive mindset, but it's impossible for someone when they're not doing well in their life and they're not doing well in their subject to have positive mindset. It doesn't happen. It has to come from having the right mind stories. And that's where Malgosha and neurogrowth learning success coaches are able to help, is to transform those stories so that they can help our students, help our kids move forward, rather than being stories that hold them back. So I hope you enjoyed that presentation. If you have any suggestions or any information you want additional to this, please do ask in the comment section. I love to hear what you have to say about our podcast and our show. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on another episode.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Our purpose for this episode was to spark a reevaluation of the current education system. For more episodes offering practical and comprehensive strategies to enhance learning, please visit www.learningsuccessacademy.com. It is crucial to ensure that children have access to the holistic neurogrowth learning approach, enabling them to break free from the constraints of an outdated educational framework. This is your opportunity to gain insight and break away from a flawed system, setting your children on a path to lifelong success that truly nurtures their thirst for knowledge. That's all for now. We look forward to having you join us for the next episode.